Hey there, my name is Frog, and welcome back to another episode of Warmup Catch-Up, the series where I talk to your favorite pro players while they go through their warm-up routine. Today, I'll be talking to MisteM, the captain of ATK. So, hey, MisteM, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, thanks. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. A bit of a back pain recently, but, you know, it is what it is. Not as much of a back pain as you, I imagine. You've been playing fucking insane lately, in your officials. Like, man, it's like I'm watching energy games from back in the day. I swear, it's really nice to see you playing well individually again. Um, so what you been up to recently? I know there's been a lot of qualifiers in NA. You guys have been super busy over at ATK.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I've just tried to get myself into a routine, at least sleeping wise. I think that's been a pretty big um, enhancement for myself. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I started gym recently with the team, at least myself, Bowden and Fady. So doing some gym, it's also just like a really good stress reliever for myself.
Right.
And I just feel like a lot better going into officials. And then something that I did previously is I kind of when I had an aim routine, I would just sometimes do DM, sometimes I wouldn't. But now I've just kind of made a habit for myself that I always need to do 30 minutes of DM before I go to bed, no matter what time it is. And that's kind of like a mental reset for myself. And if I don't do deathmatch before I go to bed, then the next day something's gonna be off. So it's like a promise that I made to myself.
Right.
Regarding the team, I'm going to bed 4 in the morning every single day, because I enjoy doing demos and just fixes for the team during that time, just because most of the time Bowden and Fady are going to bed before then, so it's nice and peaceful for myself, and I distractions, so I can get most of my work done during that time.
I see. So even if you are going to bed at 4 or 5 a.m., you are doing your deathmatch before then as well?
Yeah, I always make sure, so if I'm going, if I'm getting tired at 4, then I make sure that I'm doing 30 minutes and then I'm going to bed at 4:30.
Wow. And so when do you usually get up as well?
I always try and be up an hour before practice. So our practice normally starts at 1. And then we'll have 2 hours of theory, 1 hour break, and then pretty much 4 scrims with 1 break in between. So I try and be up at 12. So if I'm going to bed at 4, then I'm at least getting 7 hours because I can function on that amount.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you gotta keep it healthy as well, right?
Yep.
So you guys over at ATK now, you guys are in Mexico, is that correct?
Yep.
And
That's
so
correct.
was that always the plan? Because I remember hearing initially that you guys wanted to move to NA, but was going to Mexico really the idea the entire time, or were you trying to go to the States first?
I think originally we were just gonna get overseas wherever we could. We were gonna be a full South African roster that came over.
Yeah.
But due to just COVID, Mexico was the only place that was open. I mean, we looked at places in Europe. We were looking at Ireland. We were looking at Serbia. So we were just looking wherever we could. We couldn't get into America because the borders, same as Canada, were all closed, and we couldn't get visas or anything. Whereas Mexico, myself and Fady, we are from South Africa, but we have British passports, so we can travel into Mexico without getting a visa. So that was a pretty big, I guess not really a problem for the org. So we could just get in and out of Mexico fairly easily.
I see. I had no idea. That's super cool. And so why Mexico then over Serbia, for example? Did you just feel like the practice in NA would be good enough?
I think Mexico's way cheaper, and from an org's perspective, I think spending a lot of money on a team that may or may not do good, I think just going to Mexico, it's also just I guess the main goal for us was North America is easier to do well in, especially with the qualifiers, and I guess the teams that were playing at the time, it was just kind of extra salt that we were kind of I guess a little scared of, because they were doing so well and they were the best in North America at the time. But coming to North America, we know that we could get our names out there and get exposure a lot quicker than Europe.
Right. I suppose that makes sense, yeah. And how have you found it so far? Do you think like it's lived up to your expectations? Do you guys feel like you're on track with your goals?
I think one of the biggest problems that we've had is a lot of roster changes. For me, as like an RGL, it was getting really tiring, like constantly changing and like getting new people, because I'm someone that likes to support my teammates in the game, like throw the flashes and things. And when we got like different players, like the South African roster, things worked out for us because roles are really good for us. And then when we came to North America, we had to pick up MisteM, or not have to, but we wanted to get MisteM, and he had to go into an AWP role, which isn't really, you know, his strength. And after that, there was just kind of like the South African, the other players, Blaze and Mango, kind of just got a little bit homesick, and a lot of they just kind of got tired from, I guess, losing a lot. So they kind of just needed to go home to mentally reset. But I'm proud of myself and Fady for having resilience through all of like the losses that we've had and roster changes. It has been really tiring, but I think right now, picking up Swisher with all the roles and how everything scrims and things, we haven't really been able to show it off in officials as of yet. But regarding our goals, I think we're finally getting there eventually. We are still a fresh team, so there are a lot of things to still iron out, but just with chatting to the team and how our goals are aligning, I think we're definitely on the right track to achieve greatness right now.
Right. And you mentioned that you wanted to pick up MOTM. Was that like the plan from the start, or did you ever consider picking up other South African players to just keep like a full five-man lineup, you know, that's South African?
I think there was like a discussion of like getting a full South African roster, but at the time we had like Chloe, and the entire team just worked really good off each other. Like personality wise, like Slowy was a really funny guy, so no matter, even if we were losing, he would always like help us get back on track and hype us up.
Right.
But there wasn't really anyone else that stood out in South Africa that was going to be like, okay, this guy's really insane, he's going to take us to the next level type thing. And it was just like a no-brainer that MOTM was a free agent, and all the experience that he had and what he could bring to the team was like impeccable for like our success.
I see. And as well, you mentioned like you guys were doing so well domestically, right? You were winning absolutely everything before moving over to NA. I imagine that's been quite difficult to then not be the top dogs anymore. How have you personally adapted to that?
We had like countless talks before we went overseas that no matter where we go, if it was Europe or North America, we aren't going to be the top dogs. So mentally we knew that it's, you know, we have the confidence from South Africa, but I think playing that first official where we just lost, that was when it actually just sinked in, because in South Africa we would lose like a best of one, but we never lost a best of three series. And when we came to North America, we just got like a slap in the face, and then that's when reality set in. And there was nothing that I wanted more than to just work harder and prove that we can do it. Like, we're from a smaller region, we're from South Africa, we don't really get many opportunities, and it's just like a dream come true, and I never want to like live my life with regrets that I could have done more. So I just made sure that I did everything that I possibly can to make sure that I can stay in North America for as long as I can.
Right. I remember back when Bravado was like the squad, right? And then eventually they went overseas with, what was it called again? Project Destiny, I think, right?
Yeah.
I remember Energy then really kind of stepping up, because I think it was like a rivalry between you guys and Bravado, and then they went overseas and you kind of took over. And I remember like, whoa, who's this MisteM guy? Like, he's playing lights out. Is he the second coming of Sonic? Like, what is this? How has your role changed over the years, really? Have you always wanted to be an IGL? Have you kind of transitioned into more, I mean, you mentioned you want to be more supportive. Is that like, was that always the goal?
I think when I was younger, all I cared about is stats. Doesn't really matter like what happened. I just wanted to get my name out there, and at the time, Energy was the best team, and the fact that they offered me was really, really good. I've always been kind of like a leader, like outside of the game. I used to play like a lot of rugby in South Africa and like just other sports, but rugby was the main one. And I was kind of like the captain for my team then, and I just like really enjoyed having all the responsibility in the team. Like if we lost, if we had to take a loss, I would be like the guy that would go and look for the fixes. I'd be the guy that would like take all the responsibility, make sure that everyone's okay. So I think when I was younger, I don't think I had the experience or determination to be an IGL at that point. But as soon as I moved across from like teams that didn't have an IGL, I definitely felt like this is what I want to be. Like I don't want to get picked up for a team because I'm a good player. I want to get picked up by a team or a better org for being a good leader. That's what brings me satisfaction at the end of the day.
Oh, that's awesome. And do you have any like role models in terms of in-game leaders and stuff?
At this moment, I would say it's Kerrigan, but like overall, it's always been BlameF. I think like a lot of people know that. Like, I just like admire him a lot, and I guess I'm close to him to an extent. Like, I just message him on Steam or Twitter, whatever, and if I have any questions about the game, like he's such a smart guy, and a lot of like people call him like a beta and things, but he just knows so much about the game that it's like crazy. Like he's watched countless demos with me, and he's really just opened up my eyes to more of the like tier 1 CS and like what we can do better and things like that.
That's awesome. Sigma Big Bro BlameF. That's super cool.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think BlameF especially has a really nice story, given that he was also like kind of a nobody, right? He played with Great Danes and then joined Epsilon, and it's really only been up since then, right? So that's, I guess, very inspiring as well.
100%.
So do you still keep up with like the scene back home, or are you just really focused on your team, your tournaments, what's going on in NA and all that?
Really keep up with the results, but I do like speak to players occasionally. Like I'll sometimes just join their stream and see what's going on, or if like one of the guys are just casting it. We don't really have like any big commentators besides Hayes, which some people know about him, but other than that, like I'll just message a guy named Deza. He normally just streams the local games, and he just like doesn't really commentate, but he just kind of interacts with the viewers, and it's like a really fun time. So I'd say like regarding results and things, I just get it from there, but I'd still speak to the Slowy and people from Bravado and things like that just to see what's going on.
Right. Yeah, Deza's awesome. I hang out and lurk in his stream every so often. I met him through Josh, or Nobody with like 7 Ys, I don't know. Who's like also a Wikipedia editor. But yeah, oh, that's awesome. Like, and I imagine you must have heard the news as well, right? For the I don't remember which event it is, but at the end of the year, South Africa has like a qualifier. Is it for not Rotterdam? I can't remember which event it is, but
it is for Rotterdam.
Yeah, okay.
Or Rotterdam. It is for that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Like, I imagine like that must be super exciting to finally feel like the scene is getting more opportunities.
Yeah, it's good to see. Like, I remember when I was in Energy, there wasn't really any tournaments. Like, we were doing really good back in 2018. We were winning pretty much everything, but there just wasn't any tournaments for us. Like, we had to go and message people overseas to get an invite or anything like that, and sometimes they'd say yes, sometimes just no, because, you know, we're from South Africa. So the fact that South Africa is getting qualifiers like that, I'm like super happy for them.
Yeah, because what I've always really found impressive about the South African scene is like it's so regionally like separated, right? And but it's not like, say, Asia, that's also quite separate from Europe and stuff like that, where it's multiple countries. It really is just the one country, the one scene, and that's kind of it. Yet it's striving. There's more teams in the SEA leagues. Now there's multiple divisions as well. It's really nice to see that it just keeps growing and growing, and there's so much passion there. Why do you think that is? What do you think is so different about like the community in South Africa compared to NA now that you've been there for a while?
I think like one of the biggest things is that maybe only 2 to 3 orgs in South Africa pay a salary, and it's not anything like great. I would say it's probably like $100 a month. So you know you can't really live off that. But I'm not really sure what's really going like why people still play. I think it's just honestly passion. You know, I think the fact that Bravado did the Project Destiny and now ATK has sent like 2 teams overseas, originally the Bravado team and now us. I think it's just a glimmer of hope that, you know, you can do it. That there are 3 South Africans right now that are overseas and playing, myself, Fady and JT, that are still kind of like representing the country. So if like JT's already qualified for the major, you know, he is a South African, people are going to look at that and be like, okay, well, we need to look at the scene a little bit more. Same with myself and Fady. So we're kind of just representing and have a lot of responsibility to bring more things to the scene. And I think people just kind of use that as like passion and motivation to keep going, as well as like locally there are a few big tournaments. I don't really know right now because of COVID, but before that there were like a lot of local tournaments that you can play. So you can play for money at that point, and it's also just everyone in the scene is close. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows like who joins what team. It's like a really nice closed environment.
Do you remember when you first heard like of Project Bravado? Like, do you remember roughly how you felt at that time? Or sorry, Project Destiny.
I would say I was really happy for them, but there was a part of me that I felt like I deserved to be there. I was only like 16 or 17 at the time, but I definitely felt like I deserved to be there. So even when I was in South Africa, like I was still working my hardest. When I was in Sin 5 or Sinister 5, I was like doing demos constantly, and there was a gaming laptop that we used to like walk around, and while I would say the in-game leader at that point was like driving the car and things, I would just be sitting next to him in the passenger seat watching demos on the laptop, trying to find fixes, and I was just really working hard because ever since I touched CS, I knew that I had to go overseas. Like I felt like it was just my passion, it was my destiny, whatever. So I was close with Fedy. I've known him for like 16 years, and to see him go overseas and like go with Bravado and things, I knew that I needed to do exactly what he was doing.
I remember they made a few roster changes, and I remember, okay, there were funding issues with Project Destiny, and then the team ended up going to like Denial or something like that, and I think they picked up a few different players. Did you kind of feel disappointed that you weren't one of the players that was then given a chance, or did you sort of understand at that point?
I think where I briefly spoke to Fady when they did the roster changes, or when he first joined, ever picked me up, and he kind of just said I was in the conversation, but I was still in school at that point, and they weren't really sure if I was willing to just completely leave school to go overseas. I'm not sure how true that was, but I didn't really have like any international experience. Like I was still young, and sometimes when you are wanting to make it, at least from the South African perspective, you want to try and get the best players possible, and I guess like the best players at that point was Black Poison and Dompster, so it makes sense that they go for them. But right. You know, you can't really take a risk with a youngster knowing that he doesn't really have much international experience, because at that time I only had 2 international tournaments that I've been to, and I didn't do very good at them.
I see. And so how did you get the news that, okay, we're sending ATK overseas? How did that conversation happen?
I was at the mall getting some food, and I messaged Warren to like help my brother like get into like a Apex Legends team, and Warren like really liked the idea, and he made like an Apex Legend team with my brother. And then probably about a week later, I was just at the mall chilling and doing whatever I needed to, and then I got a message from Warren saying, yo, JT and all of those guys, TC, were like telling me how you're one of the up and coming players in South Africa. I want to like rebuild ATK and send them overseas. And when I heard that news, I knew that this is my chance, and you know, I can't screw it up. So he gave me like full authority to pick the players that I wanted. and then that was just pretty much how it came out. I could pick anyone in South Africa because I knew that people would just join me, based off of, you know, this team can go overseas and whatever the case may be. So I just made sure I picked the people that I felt was right at that time. So I was really like ecstatic at that point.
Nice. And so what's like the goal moving forward? I guess it's to try to qualify for an international event.
Yeah, I think for everyone, I think especially for MisteM, he definitely wants to go to a European tournament. It's been a while since he's been there. But right now, I think the goal is that we're getting everyone into the house. MisteM is going to be coming here in about 2 days, as well as like Swish will be here sometime next week or the week after. So we're going to get everyone in the house, and I think it's just really good that everyone's in the house for a period of time. We're going to try and play the ECL season together as a team. It's just really easier to work on mistakes, talk about problems, really gain team synergy when everyone's in the house.
Right.
So that's going to be like our first goal. I think the rest is that, honestly, just to win everything. I think try and be like top 30 in the world. I think it's a reasonable goal. I don't think it's unrealistic, and just to be consistent. I think we beat a lot of teams, but then we also lose to a lot of teams that we should be beating.
Right. And so currently in the house, it's yourself, Fady, Spray, and Bowden, right?
Spray went home. He had to go and like do some things at home, but he's gonna be back in June, so it's just myself, Bowden, and Fady right now.
I see. How did you two meet? Because now you've been working together for a long time, I imagine.
Myself and Spray?
Yeah.
He was, when the 80k team was created, he was already, it was kind of like his project to make. And he was really close with TC, so obviously TC mentioned my name and JT, and then he like approached me with Warren to make the team. So him and I have just been together since the start of the team.
I see. Because I guess one thing that really stands out, especially to people who don't know the team as quite as well, is just the mix of nationalities, right? 2 South Africans, now a Swede, and 2 Americans, as well as then an Israeli coach, all playing to Counter-Strike together in Mexico, but also like playing in NA. Like that's a whole. I mean, it's awesome. Like I love it because it's so global and it's exactly what Counter-Strike is. But like, yeah, it's just really cool to see. Oh yeah, how did like you decide on picking? I mean, obviously you had Truth initially, but how did you decide on Bowden and Truth?
I think we tried 2 North Americans before we picked up the European boys. We tried Cyrex and we tried Manus, and we kind of just felt like, it's gonna sound a bit rude, but we just felt like the impact wasn't enough for us to start beating, you know, the complexities or the guard sense or anything like that. We really did feel like our level wasn't getting higher, so we really wanted to go bigger and go with the European boys. Obviously, Truth had like some food poisoning and all this other stuff, and it kind of just messed them up. So it was unlucky, like the timing with him. But it was kind of just Spray has both coached Bowden and Truth before. I think he's coached Bowden before, so he was like really involved with them, and he kind of just sent them a message because at that time they were both like free agents, and Bowden was part of Little Mix, which he is the co-owner of. So yeah, they were just like really excited to, I guess, move to North America and play under like a different team, you know, just like a different project for themselves. So we kind of just messaged them, and we could really tell that they had like a different mindset. They wanted to win everything, they wanted to put the work in, and that was just kind of how things went down.
Oh, I guess I'm pleasantly surprised to learn that it wasn't too hard to convince them then.
No, I'm not really someone where like I want to beg someone to join. It's kind of like I just want them. I'll be like, yo, do you want to join, or you want to trial, whatever the case may be. And if they say yes, then great. But I don't want to be a guy like, dude, you really need to join. Like, we really need you. Like, are you gonna join? It's like, I don't have time for you if you're not gonna join me. That's just kind of like how my mentality is. Like, I want to work hard with people that want to work hard with me. Like, you need to put the same amount of work in that I do, or you need to be like doing better than me.
I see. And what's the relationship like with ATK as an org right now? I mean, the time zones must make things a bit difficult to keep working with each other, I suppose?
Yeah, I think they're doing the best that they can. Obviously, time zones like mess things up, and at the end of the day, we are a South African org, so I kind of defend them in some part, because you know things are quite expensive. That you are starting to pay things in dollars and things like that, and when you are coming from South Africa, and like the dollar to rand exchange rate is like $1 is 15 rand, which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
But overall, like, I'm really happy with Warren, the owner. Like, we have a really good relationship. He's really helped out my family, as I said, like, with my brother getting into an Apex team, and obviously him sending me overseas. Like, I just have respect for him for that.
Do you, like, have any plans of going home in the near future? Even if it's just, like, for a quick visit?
I think I have a play breaks sometime in August, so we just have a flight back, myself and Fady, on like the 16th of August. So we're just gonna go back then, but you know, if we have tournaments, then like we'll just have to change the flight. But the good time going back would be on the 16th of August.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I myself am, so I'm originally from Canada, but now I live in the UK, and I'm going back home next week for 2 weeks, so it'll be nice. It's been about a year and a half since I left, so yeah, I know that like being away from home, it's fun, it's exciting, you're doing something else, but it can also be difficult.
I think when things are not going your way, like for the first, I would say 6 months, like we qualified through advanced, which is like great and all, but we knew that we could do that. But now that we're in Premier and we're qualifying for these closed qualifiers, we're not really qualifying for the main events. So sure, we're going through the closed qualifier, like we should be doing that, but we're not really showing the results that we wanted to. At least in this last one, like it really affected me mentally. I started messaging whatever tier 1 people that I had on my friends list, because I was getting really to a point where I didn't know how to mentally reset. Like when we lost to Carpe Diem, it was something that I never wanted to happen. Same with Godsend. Like I know that we can beat these teams and people can say that they're better than us, but I never want to have like someone that's better than me. I just hate it when like I'm losing. So it was just, we can do like so much better, and I was just messaging Elige or Rush, Blame F, everyone that I could, just to see how like I could mentally reset moving forward, and they gave me some pretty good advice, and I feel like a lot better now that I have that, as well as like we have a sports psychologist that we're working with. So mentally wise, I think I'm doing pretty good now, as well as like physically. As I said, I'm starting gym, so these are aspects that I never had before, at least when we had the South African roster. Like, we never really were in depth with our sports psychologists. We weren't really doing physical training. So now that these things are on board, I can definitely feel a change in me as a player, and you can see like the results. I've been playing a lot better recently as well.
Oh, man, that's so nice to hear. Like, genuinely, I'm really happy for you.
Yeah,
and
I'm glad things are slowly going our way, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's never easy, especially like as you said, now you get into these close qualifiers, it's taking that next step that can feel so difficult, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in, like, I don't know, 5 years roughly, right? Do you still want to be competing over North America? Do you ever dream of going home and building something there?
I think like the simple answer is we're all playing this because we want to make it one day. And by make it, I mean, you know, being in a top team. For me, I don't really play for the money. I don't care what salary I get. I just want to play it like a top level, play against the best, show people that I can be the best. I've still got a long way to go, but as I said, I just don't care about the money that I get. I'll still work as hard. If I'm getting a $40,000 salary, a $1,000 salary, whatever the case may be, I'm still going to work the exact same. So I would say in 5 years, I just want to make sure that like I cement my foot in the game, you know, I cement my name, MisteM somewhere, whether it's with stickers or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever make the major, I'm for sure buying up some of those stickers. Hell yeah.
Love that, yeah.
Although I guess now, who knows, you'd have to make, what, top 8 at the major if those roles are still the same moving forward?
Yeah.
Do you
I think it's doable.
No, for sure. I mean, I have faith. Do you think that like South Africa will ever get like a more direct way to qualify for the major? Because occasionally you can play the Asia Minor, but it's such a gray area that like it's kind of hard to say.
I think It's moment I'd say no, because you know they want to get all the other regions first, so North America, Asia, and things. But I'd say if it wasn't for COVID, then I would say that there's a pretty high chance. But I'm not too sure. I mean, I would love them to get more qualifiers and get exposed. They are hardworking people out in South Africa, and they deserve opportunities to show what they are capable of. But at least we got something in Rotterdam, so hopefully more qualifiers like that start happening.
I mean, at this point, it just kind of feels like a matter of time, maybe a few seasons before South Africa gets its own like ECL. I imagine, with now that Asia has it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope anything for them, tournament-wise, or more orgs, more money, anything to just help the scene. Like we're a type of scene where we don't really have many egos, so anything that just comes to us, like we'll just happily accept,
I know you said that you don't really follow the scene all too closely anymore, but are there any players or teams that really stick out to you right now?
Not at this moment. I would say it's still kind of like one of the guys that I always want to go overseas is a guy named ADM. I think he's like a hard worker. A lot of people like should know him. He hasn't really had too much exposure. Like I don't know what his goal is right now. There was a team that just got announced that he's playing for. It's with Black Poison and Kani, Chartered and Deadshot. Like that's a pretty like heavy hitting team. I don't really know like how they're performing, but I think if there was one player that I would want like to go overseas would be ADM.
He was an in-game leader as well, right? For a while with Goliath, I think.
Yeah, he was also like with me in my energy days, and he was someone that like originally first taught me a lot about the game.
I see. Yeah, it's I feel like there's a lot of really talented players in South Africa, but one of the main complaints I guess I have is the fact that the rosters shuffle so often. I don't know if teams really give themselves enough time to grow, and I get that with a lot of them not being salaried and all that, it's kind of hard to enforce like a structure sometimes. But man, like so many teams, like I feel like if you just gave yourself a few extra months, maybe you would be able to work out your issues. Why do you think there are like so many roster changes?
I think like a lot of the time South Africans just kind of like build their team around names. I don't think they really build it around how the person is. So you could pick like the best players of the country, but it might not work just because personalities might clash. So I don't really think there's like a big thing. I think just everyone wants results, so they just see like who's available. There's a lot of the time the older players are retiring, and then there's newer players from like the Faceit that's coming up. So I would say like this year and last year, like there were some players like just youngsters that just came out of nowhere, like Zox, Triton, and Deadshot. Like when I was playing there, like I kind of heard of them, but they weren't really doing like insane. And now they're like all in top teams. So it's just kind of names just kind of pop out of nowhere, and they just take the risk on them, I guess, because there's no harm, no foul, because there's nothing really on the line other than a few tournaments that you can win money for.
Right. Do you think there's a good trickling down of information? You mentioned like a lot of the older players retiring, but same could be said for NA as well, right? With I don't know, say Nothing and Co just retired and never really gave that many chances to upcoming players, other than I guess Stewie back in C9. Do you think that's sort of the case with South Africa as well, or there's enough veterans around to kind of like help teach and develop these younger players?
I think people that retire, for example, like Elusive and Black Poison, they more focus on developing the scene, and I think they are developing players. So they like would develop getting more qualifiers for us, like ESEA Cash Cups or something like that. Like recently, that's what Game Doc have done. So I think they're more interested in developing the scene tournament-wise rather than teaching players, because you can easily like teach yourself by just watching demos. Or one thing that I've always learned is just constantly ask questions. It's one of the biggest ways that I learned to be a better in-game leader. I just ask questions with anyone, and you just get so much information, because sometimes people just write you paragraphs and paragraphs, and you can just take so much information from that.
I see. Yeah, 'cause, I think Black Poison was what was it? It was Southern Lions, right? That he was involved with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
I imagine that's the main hub, right, for or the main facet hub for South Africa, if I'm not mistaken.
I see that people are also playing like the ESEA game dog, but I don't know if that's like it's a pro division, which is like the rank S, I would say, of South Africa. I don't know if that's just a weekend thing or if that's like always going on. But when I was playing, at least Southern Lions was like where everyone was playing.
I see. So a lot of people I know kind of just either are in school or also have another job on the side when they're trying to be an aspiring pro. What did you sort of envision yourself being if you couldn't be a CS pro?
When people ask me like what my plan B is, I just tell them like I don't know, because all I want is to do CS. I really just didn't have anything else in mind. I just wanted to make it like no matter what. Like if things had to happen with like 80k and I couldn't stay overseas anymore, like I've been playing FPL and I've just been saving money that I was willing to just send myself overseas and buy my own apartment or something and just play from there, do whatever I can, whether it's in North America or Europe. It's just, I don't know, I want to like do everything that I can to be the best. So I guess I don't really have a plan B, but I guess like this last year, one thing it would probably be a chiropractor.
Oh,
If I
yeah.
couldn't be like CS person, because I go to the chiropractor quite a lot for my my neck and my back, and I don't know, I've enjoyed like helping people, I guess, with their pain.
That's awesome. I was not expecting that. But hey, I mean, yeah, it's working out for you. Like you are in Mexico now chasing the dream. Like that's such a crazy and unique story, but you're doing it. So like seriously, hats off to you, man. You're living the dream.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Are there like any players that you'd really want to work with in your career down the line?
I would say if I couldn't be RGL, I would like to work with Carrigan. I think like he's a pretty smart RGL runner, and not just because of what he does in game, but I always like feel that in order to be a good team, you also need like a really strong leader outside the game, someone that like can lead the team to do anything. You know, no one like really is stubborn. Like the leader kind of just inspires them to do better. So I think Carrigan is definitely that person, as well as Glaive. But obviously, like one person will obviously be BlameF. But if it can't be him, then it would probably be Carrigan for me.
I guess as well with in-game leaders, like it's outside of I guess Kerrigan and Glaive, it's hard to say that there are a lot of like amazing in-game leaders. It feels like a lot of teams are sort of struggling in that department right now. So who knows? Maybe developing as that IGL is like the career, like the best way to make a career for yourself, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think North America, at least, you can probably get the title for being the best IGL, because North America really hasn't had, I would say, someone that's been like super impactful as an IGL. You know, I would say like Nacho's doing a pretty good job recently, and I'm obviously going to give some praise to JT. I think them two are like the highest IGLs runner. But other than that, I don't really think that there's like anyone that's like insanely like big that you can be like, okay, this guy's insane. Because like if you look at the European scene, you can mention Glaive, Carrigan, like a lot of people like KDN, for example, as well. Just I'll say natural like born leaders. Like they don't care about anything else rather than just leading the team. And as I said, like satisfaction as like an in-game leader is when you win a round. Like having an insane call on your team is like, dude, like that was an insane call. Like good calling this game. Like it's so nice to hear that sometimes, because RGLs don't really get that like recognition sometimes, and it doesn't really affect me too much. But sometimes it's just nice to just hear that like your hard work is paying off and like your teammates are appreciating you, or whether it's casters or someone else that's just like praising you on Twitter or anything like that. It's just nice to see that like your hard work is finally doing things.
Yeah, because a lot of the time the IGLs, they just get the blame rather than the praise as well, right? It's always, oh wow, the Opper made this insane play, good for them, but like, the IGL could have been the one calling that.
Yeah, I just love the responsibility that you get there. Even if you lose, like, I wouldn't mind the blame. It's fine on my side. Like, I know that the role that I'm taking, like, part of, so whether I get blamed for losing a series, like, I don't really mind.
Do you ever see yourself becoming a coach down the line, or you really not, like, you just want to be a player, you want to be a leader?
Yeah, I think if I can't help people within the server, like RGLing, then coaching is probably the next best thing that I can do. So I've definitely thought about it, and like coaching is something that I would do. If not coaching, then probably like commentating or something. Like I also enjoy casting some games.
Do you, who would you consider as like your main rival right now in NA?
The team that we just can't beat right now is just Carpe Diem. I would say like they are our rival. It's a team that we know that we can beat, and they're just a team that's just destroying us. So I would say like Carpe Diem is like our rivalry right now.
Is there like a specific reason you guys? I mean, I know that's a hard question, but is there a reason you can identify? Is it just like the team cohesion? Is it a specific player? Is it the play style?
I think constant roster changes. Like we were beating this team before. We've even beaten them with like Spray. But I think Glacier just brought like a lot of firepower to that team, and they're like they kind of built the team around him. Like he has a lot of freedom to do what he wants. So sometimes you just don't expect what he does, and he's like a good aimer. So he has like a lot of the time he can just take over games. So I think us as a team, like I don't really know what's gonna like go on right now, but we're still developing as a team, so I'm not too sure like how things are gonna go. But as I said, like we should be beating them. I don't really like have an answer for them as of yet. It's just kind of one of them has like a hero game, and we just don't have an answer for it.
Do you feel like your roster does have that kind of potential hero player that can just take over a game?
Yeah, I think even like everyone is heavy hitters. Like we have really insane individual players. It's just kind of like our team cohesion right now that's not really getting to where it needs to be. But I can't really blame that. I mean, we just picked up Swisher, so
Yeah.
we're still working on our map pool and things like that. Like we've been together for 2 to 3 weeks, and we had to rush some of our maps because all these qualifiers that we had the RMR. Now we have we just had the tournament. I can't even remember what we just played, Dallas, and we have like a bunch of cash cups. So there's so many officials that we're playing right now that we haven't really had like a long period to play. Like I was speaking to Mike or Swisher last night, and like I was just asking like, you getting comfortable? And he says he just needs to find his like footing right now. Like we haven't like had a lot of practice, so he can't really like fit himself in as of yet. So I'm really happy that there's a lot of officials, but I'm glad that it's kind of stopped for a little bit so that we can like start practicing and start developing as a team, finding like our own footprint, I guess.
Is it difficult to like have like that balance between officials and scrims? Because I guess while yes, official experience is good, it also means that like if you've just not had time to prep, you're not going to be able to actually perform when you want to, right?
I think as a new team, you'd obviously want to practice as much as you can. So I would say like in Europe you can pick and choose your tournaments, but here in North America you just kind of have to play with the officials like no matter what. So I wouldn't say it's like hard to like prep or anything, because you do know when the tournaments are, but it is kind of hard for a new team to really get like a good map pool, because you might not be playing like a good map, and then a lot of teams that have been together for a while, like Complexity or Godsend, would like slide in a Vertigo pick, which is something that you don't really develop as like a new team, or an Ancient pick, or one of the new maps or something like that. You normally focus on the Puggy maps, so sometimes it's hard to just prepare for a stronger opponent because your map pool just isn't quite there yet, and they can just outplay you with strategies or just the meta of that map at the moment.
All right. And as a final closing question, what would you say is your fondest Counter-Strike memory, right? It does not have to be in the game. It could just be something that was related to Counter-Strike, but what's your best memory?
I think my best memory is probably like a play that I made when I was playing when I was at the Berlin Minor. I didn't really win the round, but it was one of like the biggest things where people were like, okay, this guy's insane, or like he's getting better. It was when we're playing Greyhound, and it was like we were 4-11 down, and I was in a 1 versus 4, and I managed to kill 3 of them. Like I was stuck on A side dust too, with a Glock, and I managed to kill like 3 of them, and then I think the last guy was on 1 HP and I lost it. But that was just kind of like a time in which people were like praising me at that time, like Zeta from Cloud9, a lot of like the other people like from that looking for org team now, like APOC and Hazard, like they were all just telling me that I'm like getting better and stuff. So I guess at that time it was just one of my favorite memories, that I was doing pretty good at that time.
Nice. Do you have any parting thoughts before we end the video?
Not really. I just want to win. That's all I gotta say.
He just wants to win, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I hope you do. We'll be rooting for you in your upcoming events, and best of luck, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.